Hi everyone, my name is Harlan. I am a part of Tracking the Cross, and this will be called Tracking the Xtras. This is an investigation into the lynching of Sandy Reeves. This will begin with playing the actual story of Sandy Reeves, and then we will continue with sharing how we got this information. We have some audio recordings of contacting different libraries and some emails of contacting the Library of Congress to get this information. I personally am a huge fan of true crime episodes that take you on their investigation, and so this is that. On September 24th, 1918, a 17-year-old black individual named Sandy Reeves / Sandy Ray was removed from Blackshear Jail after being wrongfully accused of criminally assaulting a 3-year-old girl. Through newspaper articles, online articles, books, and more, we were able to contact the Library of Congress to get more information. And through the information from the Library of Congress, we were able to find direct documents from the NAACP of Waycross, Georgia, to get his full story. There will be an episode directly dedicated to Sandy Reeves through our investigative journalism into his life and his story, so be sure to check that out. It'll be released the same day as this one. You can also find these documents directly on our Facebook page called Tracking the Cross, or TrackingTheX. I will be reading the direct letter from the NAACP about his story, word for word. The only thing I will be leaving out is some descriptions of the white individuals. However, you can read that on your own through our Facebook page. In September, the little town of Blackshear, Georgia, which has a population of 1,200 souls, located a few miles distant of the rather progressive town of Waycross, Georgia, a mob vented its spleen on its undersized colored boy of 17. Although the mob knew at the time that it lynched the boy, that its victim was not guilty. The facts in this case are these. Sandy Ray, a diminutive black boy in short trousers, 17 of age, was working on September 24th with his father on the farm of a white man named McDonald, who owned a small farm on the outskirts of Blackshear. Sandy's father worked on McDonald's farm on shares, and on that day mentioned above, was working in the field. Sandy was working on the field with his father and was carrying loads of fodder from the field to the barn situated near the house in which McDonald's family lived. McDonald on this day was away on business, and his wife was gone into town to make some purchases, leaving the 2 children in the care of Sandy Ray's sister, whom worked for the McDonald family as a maid of all work. When Sandy completed his task of carrying fodder, he returned to the field to work with his father. On reaching the field, he discovered that he had left his coat near the house and secured permission from his father to return for it. While there, he went to the grape arbor situated near the house to gather some grapes, and he was followed by the 3-year-old girl. Sandy, who was at the top of the arbor, gathering grapes while the child was under the arbor playing. While doing this, a 5-cent piece fell from Sandy's pocket, landing on the ground in front of the child, who picked it up. Sandy immediately jumped down from the arbor and asked the child for his money. The child refused to give him the money, and an argument ensued. Finally, Sandy snatched the money from the hand of the child and walked off, returning to the field where his father was working, and resumed his tasks there. The child, however, threw itself down on the ground in a fit of passionate rage, screaming and making a great commotion in its vexed fit of ill temper. Shortly after, the mother returned from town and was greatly alarmed at finding the child in this condition. Learning that Sandy had been near the house, she insistently became greatly frightened at the inherent cries of the child. A physician of Blackshear, Dr. Henry, was called in, who carefully examined the child, with particular pains expended to see whether or not any attempt to assault the child had been made. After the examination, he told the mother that the child's body bore no bruises or any marks of rough handling, that the only harm to it was the snatching of the money from its hand. This happened between noon and 1 o'clock. Between 3 and 4 o'clock of the same afternoon, the doctor returned to the house with the sheriff, who went to the field where the boy was working with his father, and arrested him. This had been for safekeeping, as the news had spread about Sandy about raping the McDonald's child. This statement, at any rate, was made to the father of the boy when he protested against the arrest of his son. Sandy was taken to Waycross and placed in the jail there. Later in the afternoon, an investigation of the affair was made in Blackshear, and Sandy was brought back to the place to be present at the hearing. This caused a commotion in Waycross, and a crowd of men from this town went to Blackshear and formed part of a crowd which rapidly formed there. It seemed that though the crowd there was a very strong doubt as to the actual guilt of Sandy of any crime, but strong indignation that he should even snatch his own property from the hand of a white child. Meanwhile, after the investigation, the boy had been placed in the flimsy jail at Blackshear, no doubt terrified at the attitude of the crowd in their muttering antagonism. Soon after this happened, the crowd of men went to the jail and secured the boy, little or no opposition being offered by the jailers to the mob. Sandy was taken back to Waycross, and the mob being led by a white man of Waycross, Ralph Brimson by name. Brimson was recognized by Lee Tover, hackman of Waycross. The crowd took the boy, who was in a state of abject terror, and carried him to a spot near the Atlantic Coast Railroad shops in the western part of town, a section known as Old Nine District. Here the boy was strung up to a tree and his body was riddled with bullets. Although members of the mob openly bragged afterwards of their participation in the lynching, the coroner's verdict was the usual and expected one of the deceased came to his death at the hands of parties unknown to the jury. I will be reading another account. This is dated October 28th, 1918, about a month later. This is also from the NAACP documents, received and archived by the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. The home of the parties was in Blackshear, Georgia. The white man lives on the eastern portion of the town in front of the white cemetery. The boy had been a trusty handy servant around the home for nearly a year. The day when the deed was supposed to have been committed, the boy had been working on the white man's field with his father a portion of that morning. Later, he did some hauling as a helper and lost his coat. So after going back to the field, he missed his coat and asked his father to allow him to go hunt for it. This had been done between 1 and 12 o'clock. This was also the hour that the deed was said to be done. The boy went to the house to see his sister, who had been asked to stay with the children while the mother had gone to town. One story goes that the boy and the child were out at the grape tree, and the boy dropped a coin which the child picked up and would not give back, so the boy took it. The child fell to the ground and hollowed. Another story goes that the children were asleep while the boy was at the house. The child was only 3 years old. The father of the child had an examination showing that the child was not soiled. I will be leaving the name of the farmer and his wife out of this podcast episode, but you can read it on Facebook. The farmer and his wife expressed no concern about the child as she was not hurt. The boy, however, went back to the field to his father, and between 3 and 4 o'clock, Dr. Henry and Herbert Riggins went to the field to arrest the boy. The father wanted a statement from the boy, and because of his desire, he was cursed and threatened if he opened his mouth. The child, whose last name was Ray instead of Reeves, was taken to Waycross jail. The Blackshear crowd came and took him from the Waycross jail and carried him back to Blackshear, but did him no harm, placing him in the jail there. By this time, the mob spirit was well worked in Waycross, so a mob from the latter place goes to Blackshear, and being joined there by others, proceeds to the jail to get the boy and carried him to Waycross near the RR, which is the railroad shops, and lynched him. I will also be leaving the family's addresses out of this, but can still be seen on Facebook. This is a direct newspaper quote. Waycross, Georgia, September 24th. Farmers coming to Waycross this morning on Waycross Glenmore Road discovered the body of Sandy Ray, a 17-year-old black, hanging from a tree near the Atlantic coastline, riddled with bullets. The black was accused of criminal assault on a 3-year-old white child of a prominent family of Blackshear yesterday afternoon. As soon as caught, he was rushed here for safekeeping in the Ware County Jail. Just as the first party reached the entrance of the jail, a second automobile containing Blackshear people rushed up, and the prisoner was taken from the first party and had been carried back to Blackshear and put in the jail there. Approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, 100 men stormed the jail and took the prisoner, but his fate was not learned until the body was discovered today. The verdict of the coroner's jury was that the victim had been taken to his death at the hands of unknown parties, and the body was ordered to be cut down and prepared for burial. Now, his story is not only relevant due to the fact that geographically he is from here, but because he was taken from the Blackshear jail, the historic Blackshear jail, that we are talking about in this episode. Sandy Ray, or Sandy Reeves, is not the only black individual that was taken from the Blackshear jail, but he is significant as he was not guilty. Sandy Ray / Sandy Reeves should be remembered more than his lynching. He was a teenage boy with feelings and dreams and goals in life. His fate should have been determined by the justice system and not a crowd / angry mob. So into the investigation, how it came about was I was wondering if we should do some kind of story on an individual that happened to come out of the Blackshear jail. And I was looking at some news reports from the Georgia Historic Newspapers from the Digital Library of Georgia, and we found one of Sandy Reeves, and I looked over it because of the fact that it was such a small article with no information. But Connor, my co-host, was thoroughly interested in it, and I was like, okay, let's do some investigation. And as we're on Google, there's not much, just a list of lynchings that happened in Georgia. But there was one article that showed part of Sandy Reeves' story, and it just opened up so much more. Now, the article wasn't directly about Sandy Reeves. It was actually about Graham Parsons, who is from Waycross, Georgia. But for some reason, part of the article also talked about his story. So we followed some footnotes, and we ended up on some books. Now, the article is by Southern Cultures called Hearing Waycross, the direct author being Abigail Greenbaum. And we did find her Facebook, and I sent her a message. However, she never responded. I was asking what her footnotes were and where she got the resources of Sandy Reeves, but then I realized that there were actual footnotes in the article. So in the article, it led us to 2 books. Popular Justice, A History of Lynchings in America, page 93, by Manfred Berg, and Lynchings in the New South, by Brundage, Brundage, Brundage. Now, I wanted this episode to be a little bit more casual, so it's going to be really me talking through it. No editing, really, just a casual conversation between me and you. So, Connor and I both work at the library, and we wanted those books, but to put them on hold, it would have taken too long. So we actually called these libraries and got the scans, and I will insert the audio clip of that right now.
Wait, 15. Why is there a reference number? There's a reference number. Go back on the doc. Look, it's right there. 15, 16, 15, 16. Or unless it's organizing the paragraphs.
I don't think so. I think that's a footnote. You might want to go back to the here in Waycross and check it.
There's nothing. Notes.
There we go. Check out 15.
15. Okay. Page 93. Alright, let's copy that. Let's go here. It's a book.
Popular Justice.
Okay, now we go on Pines. Let me see if we can get it. Popular Justice, a history of lynching in America. But how did they get the information?
That's fine.
My thing is, how are we going to read this in time?
We're not. I mean, we're gonna have to.
This is why it would be nice to have funds, because then we could just buy it and then we could get it in 2 days.
Mm-hmm. Brundage. Yep, that's
Wait.
it. That's it.
Wait, no. Let's do this. Because we know the page number. We call the library that has it and ask them to send us an email of whatever it is. Let's do it. Okay.
Ayo. Okay.
All right, so you do it for your book. Find the libraries that have it. This only has 2 libraries, so let's pray that they're open because it's already 6 o'clock.
Let's see. Lynching in the New South, page 108.
Washington Memorial Library. Thursday? They're open. Okay. Let's pause this. Hi, my name is Harlan. I work at the Waycross Ware County Library, and I'm doing research on a lynching that happened here. And I found a book in your library, and yes, I know that I can put it on hold in Pines, but it'll get here too late for the research that we're doing. So I wanted to know if you could find the book and scan the specific page and email it to us. Are you able to do that? Okay. We can start by, I can give you the reference number, the name of the title, and the author. Okay. It's called Popular Justice, A History of Lynching in America. It's crazy how it goes from one thing and then like expands. I think that's my favorite thing about this podcast. It's like a huge treasure hunt of history.
Yeah. It's like going down rabbit holes.
Yeah, literally. And it just keeps going and going and going and going. And you never really get to the end.
The thing is, I come up with a lot of dead ends.
Why do I never get a dead end?
Huh?
I never get a dead end.
I know.
I just, like my brain just is like, oh my god, wait, we can do it this way.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh shoot, I wish we had a fund.
And then I'm
Dead
like, wait.
end, but like, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, if we don't have a fund, like, let's figure out a way to do it. I've just always been like that.
Jesus,
Like
I need to start thinking that way.
It's hard. But for me, like, I came from no money and, like, nothing but, like, myself. And so I always had to figure out a way to do it myself for free. And so, yeah, even now, like, with the shop, I'm, like, constantly like, okay, how do I do this for free?
Yeah.
Yeah. When Sandy Reeves, yes, you did it. Okay, I think that's all we need, right? Yeah, that's all we needed. Oh my god, thank you so much. You as well. Bye-bye.
Yeah! Okay, hand me that form real quick.
Next.
All right.
We love librarians. Tracking Across needs to do a post.
Library, this is Shelby. What can I do for you?
Hi, my name is Connor. I work at the Waycross Ware County Library, and we're doing some research on a lynching that happened back in 1918. We have got the title of the book.
That's not the book, Connor. Oh, yeah, that is okay.
Yeah. We've got the title of the book right here, and we know that your library has it. And we know we...
Wait, sorry, you went out. Could you repeat yourself? I'm so sorry. I didn't hear.
It's okay. I looked up the book on Pines, and I see that you guys have it. Normally we would place a hold on it, but we don't have time. We were wondering if I gave you the title and or the call number, if you would be able to scan the pages that we need and email it to us.
Yes, okay. So first let me find the book.
Okay.
What's the title of it?
It is Lynching in the New South, Georgia and Virginia, 1880 to 1930.
And we've had it take up to 5 minutes, and I just sent it. So
Okay, we got it.
you got it?
We did. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. You're very welcome. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Leesburg Library, this is Shelby. What can we do for you?
Hi, it's Connor again. I'm sorry to bother you.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have that same book handy?
Yeah, I can go grab it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hold on one second. All right, would you like to stay on hold, or you just want me to send it to the same email?
You can just send it.
Okay, all righty. I will get those to you.
All right, thank you.
Great, you're very welcome.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
So from there, we read the articles, as you heard in the clip, and we were in utter shock. And really, it just said the same thing that the first article said, and we were just like, okay, well, there has to be more information. So I ended up emailing one of the authors, which was Manfred Berg, and he is actually a professor in Germany. He is German, yet he teaches American history. And so I emailed him, and he responded. So I emailed him introducing the podcast and that we wanted more information on Sandy Reeves. And he actually responded like a couple hours later. Actually, no, it was the next day. And he said, "Thank you for your inquiry. I'm quite busy at the moment. I will get back to you as soon as possible." And like, I was like shook. I was like, oh my God, what if he never responds? Like, what if he forgets? But then he emailed 2 days later, and he's like, I checked my sources. I took Sandy Reeves' story from W. Fitzhugh Brungate's Lynching of the New South, which we had that. And then he also listed the fact that Brungate footnotes the NAACP papers in his sources, which was from the Library of Congress. And that's how we got the information of the Library of Congress. And I'm sorry I sound out of breath. Like, this information, like, it's just like this hunt. It just thoroughly excites me. And so then Connor contacted the Library of Congress. He had a phone call with a couple people, and nothing really came about it. They emailed and said that you could come to the place, or like if you find the specific thing, then we'll be able to scan it to you. And so then they sent like this website and this PDF. And so I went on the PDF and I found the Waycross information of the NAACP. I will actually tell you what it is right now. Okay, so this is what I told the Library of Congress. I need scans of Part 1, Branch Files in Box 1G46, Waycross 1918. Specifically on Sandy Reeves, a black 17-year-old child who was lynched, and it is assumed his death started the NAACP chapter of Waycross, which we did assume that. We found that information on the Southern Cultures article that Abigail wrote. However, it's not true. The NAACP chapter started before Sandy Reeves' death, just like a couple months before. So anyway, we got that information, which we can upload on our Patreon. So definitely follow us on Patreon. But the other articles, aka Sandy Reeves information, will be on our Facebook under Tracking the X, aka Tracking the Cross, aka TRACKINGTHEX. Anyway, the Library of Congress emailed back, and this is what they said. Let me get to it. Hello, Harlan. Thank you for contacting the Library of Congress Manuscript Reading Room. I talked to you on the phone yesterday, and the contents of the requested folder are attached here for your references. Feel free to reply with any questions and best wishes. So here's when I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, we finally got everything. And I was sitting at the circulation desk of the library and I looked over at Connor and I was like, we got it. And he goes, we got it? And oh my God, it just sparked this whole thing. So we printed it out, we started reading it, and oh my God, we realized that we got his whole story. We are able to now give him justice. And as I was reading it, I started crying, not only because of his story, but because he died. Like, his death was, like, his life was cut short. And how awful for it to be for something he didn't even do, you know? And for it to be local. And we started going on this whole thing. We started tracking some of the addresses that the documents referenced, which, though it didn't pan out the way that we thought it would, that doesn't mean that we're not going to keep investigating. And when we do, we will have a part 2 to this episode, as it will be ongoing. We are going to go to the locations where we assumed it happened, his lynching, and a couple other places, and hopefully find some relatives that are alive today and let them know about his story if they don't already know, and bring justice and a voice to his life. Now, Sandy was only 17 and did not have any children, though it was common at the time to have children at a young age. Sandy did not. And so we found a lot of his siblings, and we're planning to track down his siblings, as you've heard in the audio clip, and we will continue to do that. And though his siblings, all of them, I assume, have passed away, he does have like great-grandnieces, I think it's called. His siblings have grandkids and great-grandkids that we'd love to contact. And so if you are related to Sandy Reeves, please reach out. Please. We would love to contact you and maybe get you on for episode 2 for an interview. I shouldn't say episode 2, part 2 of this episode. But we are so thankful that we have these resources to be able to give a voice to the underprivileged, especially those who no longer have a voice at all. Now, like I said in other clips, you can definitely check out our Facebook and our Patreon for all the information that we found. It's under Tracking the X, and we are so thankful that you're interested in what we do. Without the listeners and without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And so special thank you to the libraries that have helped us, especially Lewis at the Library of Congress. He opened up everything for us. And for our local libraries where we work and other community libraries in the state of Georgia. Connor couldn't be in this episode as he is a very, very busy person. But I am thankful that you guys listen to me stumble on my words and all of the crazy stuff. But we will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.